First, I want to take attendance. Jack, I see you're here. Ryan, you're here. Jeff, here. Paul, you're here. Mark, you're here. Maeve, here. Joe is our new member, Joe Volke. And Jennifer is not here. So that's 7 of you present. So, first item of discussion here is the appointment of the final commissioner. Maeve, I know you had spoken to
Sandy Zarillo?
Yes, Sandy Zarillo. I know that she surely. I know she said that she was interested. I don't know if you could speak a little about that.
Sandy Zarillo is from the Van Schaik Mansion, which is located in Cohoes. It was an anchor site in planning with the Battle of Saratoga. Sandy's also part of the DAR, the Gansevoort chapter. And most impressively right now, she's been a lead coordinator with the Lafayette program that is coming September 17th. It's a partnership with the Friends of Lafayette, commemorating Lafayette's last visit. It's the 200th anniversary, right, Dad? I think, of his visit.
Yes.
His last American tour.
It'll be for 2 years.
Yes, so they're starting, it's a program that's starting in West Point and it's going to travel to Albany and Troy, and she's been a lead coordinator. We invited her to come observe today, but she said she couldn't make it because she's working on finalizing the bus tour and doing outreach to 1,000 members of the Lafayette group. So it just seems like between her connections with DAR, those connections to Van Schaik, and seeing some of the work that's happening with this Friends of Lafayette tour, we felt like her skill set seemed worth to bring to the group.
Okay.
So she said yes, she will serve?
Yes.
Good.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or any comments?
So I don't know if you, because I just said that we would reach out. So Patrick, is that you would reach out to her to say like a formal cool?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to take a motion to appoint her, so.
Okay.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I make a motion to include Sandy Zarillo from Van Schaik and Cohoes to the commission.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sandy Zarillo is appointed to the commission.
Point of inquiry, had we previously voted on Mr. Volke?
I believe you did at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So next item on the agenda, selection of a chairperson. We will not do that at this time because I think it's appropriate for everyone to be here and all the, the new commissioner as well to be included. I was not here at the last meeting. However, there was some, back and forth about communication, how we want to do this. Do you all want me to create I can have IT create like a USA-250 at Albany County NY email address, and that could go to me, and I can send that around. I figure you all sort of wanted all the resources to go to me. I'm fine doing that. I figure it's probably easier for the public to just have that, shorter address rather than, spelling out my whole name or whatever the case is. So if you all want me to do that, I will take care of that. So, yeah.
That'd be good.
I have a little note with that Discover Albany also offered our website and social media, if that is something, if we want that communication to go there.
Okay. I think we can probably figure out the sort of how these things interconnect.
Yeah, because I think we can make each other co-host, we can
Yeah.
give each other access to all of it.
Okay.
You're talking like an actual web presence, like a web
Yeah.
website?
So, and actually after, and we won't get into it now, but at the New York State 250 Commission, they were showing Saratoga's website, which is like a drop down that has all of their 250, they have one specific for 250. And then we did get inquiry immediately on our website saying it should be on Discover Albany's too. And, our marketing department said sure. So I don't know if that makes sense to do it. There's things called microsites where it doesn't have to look like albany.org, but they can click, 250, and then it would go to its own website that I'm sure we could both keep an eye on and whatnot. I think they call it a microsite.
Okay.
but just offering our services there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to have, just a, I was gonna say physical presence, but a physical website presence. Just like you said, in case people are looking into what's going on, it doesn't have to be the most extravagant thing right off the start, but, having some sort of organized and structured presence, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and we could put all of like the heritage sites across the county. So even if it's not an events calendar yet, here are the sites you can visit with Routes to 250.
And how, have we been thinking about, how would we manage social media in terms of, Facebook postings and Instagram postings? I mean, anyone have any ideas?
Our manager offered
Okay,
that,
that's awesome.
yeah, so we have, for the Halloween festival, we have a Halloween page, and so they said that they'd be happy to do a 250. We would just need support from the community to inform us what needs to go on there. So we try to keep track online as much as we can, but those other historic societies, just to get on their radar to make sure that they're communicating.
Okay.
This might be down the road a little ways, but particularly since, and we talked about this last meeting, this is going to be a long-term project. Should we start to think about branding? Like, what is our brand so that we're consistent in whatever signage we begin to do? And it should start with our internet.
Yeah.
We got to come up with colors. We got to come up with a brand so
Yeah.
that we're consistent throughout. People begin to recognize who we are and what we're doing.
I had asked, again, our, Discover Albany did say, like, yeah, sure, because we do have, our director of marketing has a graphic design background. That being said, is it an opportunity to open it up to the community, right? Do we want to just keep it in-house, or is it something that there would be some outreach? Is it something the county has their, I guess that would be, but I agree, we should have our own.
I like the idea, but I think for expediency's sake, if there's an in-house person who's good and expert, I think we should, and they're offering, I think we should take advantage of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be good to be open to doing some of those other things, but the initial upfront, get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Take advantage of your resources.
Mhm.
I have a concern because this is a totally different generation than 50 years ago, and I have this horror of about 20 websites that are the website, and they don't all coordinate. And if we have any centralized, well-qualified, well-staffed organization, I'd rather support it as much as I can rather than duplicate it.
And just to refresh, so that's gonna be Facebook and what else?
Probably Instagram, Facebook and Instagram.
Does the timing allow us maybe to come up with some design ideas, maybe by the next meeting? We could look at them and.
Yeah, I
Would that
can
be
ask
possible?
Katie. Right now we're just finishing up our visitor guide, the Albany County Visitor Guide. But she's pretty good about, you put the idea in her head, and when she gets a moment, she'll play and come up with some things. I might reach out to the committee and ask for like words, inspiration that might spur her along.
And remember, in terms of our discussion last time, we talked about making sure we have sort of legacy, not one and done, sort of legacy project. One of the legacy projects may be a more permanent thing that would then be branded and, right? So that would then give us the opportunity to invite the community. And but in the immediate term, I think taking advantage of the offer that's out there is
Great.
the smart way to do it. In terms of sort of populating the content of social media posts, following our meetings and what have you, I'm comfortable with either you or Patrick kind of summarizing from a meeting and doing a post and providing the content.
Yeah, I think we can figure that out.
Yeah, I have confidence in either or both of you to, to sort of speak for the commission relative to what we did and what we want the world to know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's probably not something that's gonna be so content heavy in terms of frequency, so it's
Yeah.
it's not like we're considering, a handful of Facebook posts a day or something like that, so I think.
No, Washington County, actually, I think their Facebook is a good example. I don't know if they have an Instagram as well, but, it's just when they know one of their sites is doing a lecture, or even if there's an ice cream social at a site that's tied, they'll put that post up just as another means to amplify, and it shows that they're thinking about 250 and looking ahead.
It's interesting, we just had this conversation at a library meeting last night, which is, certainly a web presence is mandatory, but in terms of ongoing engagement, social media is actually probably more important than, updating the website,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Do you have a timeline when we'd like to see it? I think Katie, when I mentioned it, said probably summer is when the website she'd start to look at. I don't know if that's okay with everybody.
I wanted to make an observation on the way here. We had an excuse for not being overly active because they hadn't even put up the state commission. Well, the state commission now exists, and it has 17 out of 19 appointees established. They had a big deal on Wednesday and so on. And people will be saying, well, now you should get higher visibility. I don't want a higher visibility until we're done with the dinner on the 400th anniversary of the city of Albany in Fort Orange. And there's rumors that the royal family will be here and things like that, all during June. And so I think somewhere closer to the 4th of July, we probably should all get sworn in we're all appointed, but maybe to get sworn in and have a formal grand opening, et cetera, and not step on the 400th anniversary, which will be pretty well over, particularly because the mayor doesn't seem to have a lot of interest in it. So to me, getting around the 4th of July, before or after, doesn't matter. That would be a time to say, okay, turn your focus now, move away from Fort Orange and the Dutch and the 1600s and so on, and guess what, we're going to start now. And I think the timing in July makes sense, rather than wanting to get anxious and then stepping on what should have been a big city of Albany and Fort Orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I was going to say I'd like the July 4th date because, even though our scope is multi-year, 250 is connected to a specific date, obviously, and it's kind of a way, if we invited some press, it's kind of
It's going to be tough because that's when they swear in the new citizens up at Saratoga every 4th of July.
I don't know if we'd want to
You
do
do
it.
it
yeah,
around it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
somewhere around, close enough that it's clear we're, kind of attempting to attach to that, and with a little bit of press, begins, not really a countdown clock, but I think that concept that, we are, if you think of New Year's when the ball coming down, we're now 1 year away from the 250th anniversary of yada da da. Just as a kind of at least a press tie, that by itself is a little bit of a story. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, I think practically speaking, today is May 21st. Whenever your next meeting is, you'll select a chairman at that time. And then that sort of, I think, dovetails nicely into an early July start for things,
Yeah.
website, swearing in, whatever.
Yeah, I totally support that approach, because we want to be good neighbors and good partners within the historical community.
Yeah, I think I just have to confirm that we would have all those assets, but if not, I also like that idea of some kind of, this is happening, we're doing something, and welcoming the community so they know who they can talk to about.
To facilitate the logistics of that, of a swearing in and a sort of a press thing, we need to coordinate, I think, with the county executive's office.
Mhm.
Do you want to do that through your, or internally within the?
I can do that.
What's your preference,
Yeah,
Jack?
whatever you wanna do.
I go through the legislature,
Yeah, okay.
because you guys talk every day.
Yeah.
So sensitize them that this is what we're thinking, and we'd be looking to a swearing in and some sort of public.
Mhm.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I guess, the next thing would be, and you both have sort of alluded to it, the New York State's 250th Commission is finally sort of off the ground after a long period of delay, so I don't know if you want to sort of talk about how that went.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of money. It's, about $50,000 for the state. But I think that was a matter of, it was Senator Warner who I think it was like just a passion, like, we just need to get into the budget, right? We need to be there, we need to have a presence. So I think it's a starting point, but they are about 2 years behind. They had to have a strategic plan by 2022. So I think a lot of what they're going to be doing this year is the strategic plan. That being said, as we look at some grants, and on the website is hosted on the New York State Museum's website. They are putting resources, they are putting dates, they put the field guide there, but they do have a line for grants, and so they're putting up the places that are doing grants, which could tie in when we look to legacy projects, and so they have signage grants and things like that. So I think that's worth taking a look at.
Where's their website?
It's on the New York State Museum's website. So, the best way I do it is I Google, the New York State Commission, New York State Museum, and that's the website that comes up.
I can get that link out to everybody afterwards.
Yeah. The field guide, which Paul gave us last time, has been updated, and it is a living document. And one of those things on the last page are the other commissions across the state. We are not included on there, but Devin said, we can definitely reach out, make sure that we get on there. It's just name contact if anyone else wants to reach out to us. They had presentations. The big one was for tall ships. So in Sailforth 250, the tall ships are coming to New York City. When I spoke to the speaker, because at the end of it, he talked about, and with more funding, we can bring them to Albany, right? Not all of them, but some of them could continue on to Albany. But when I kind of talked to him on the side, it's like, well, it's really money dependent. And his name, Chris O'Brien, and I can share his contact. That may be something the commission wants to talk to, like what kind of money are we talking about, what kind of docking, those kind of things. But it was the presentation will be live. I haven't, they recorded it, but it may be worth looking at his presentation because that was a big thing at the end. But I think that's highly money dependent, maybe money that we don't have, but I think it's worth hearing out what are the limitations, because to get a couple of the tall ships would be pretty incredible. It would likely be sometime after July 4th because they'd have to travel to us. They do expect to raise more money through state and federal grants. They went back and forth that you can, written in their legislation, they can sell merchandise. They don't know that they want to sell merchandise, but that is a potential fundraising opportunity for them. I'm just throwing that out there because if we do have a brand or something, I don't know. And so that was kind of the stuff. Dad, you were also there, so I don't know if you have anything else you want to.
Spent a lot more time listening about which form of Robert's Rules of Order is going to be used. It's supposed to happen before the lunch. The person who offered the motion withdrew her own motion so she could think about it over lunch, and they all decided that they would use. The education commissioner says, I got this problem with the Board of Regents, and I have like 17 of them, and we use what's called Robert's Rules of Order Light. And so we came back, that got improved, nobody knows what it is.
But that's how they're going to move forward.
Yeah, and it was, listening to Crowley talk was good. He is the only member, it was the former assemblyman from the Bronx, and then he became the congressman. He was number 4 in the Congress, and he got knocked off by
AOC.
Mm-hmm. And I remember walking with his brother and two historians from West Point. By the way, the West Point person is on this commission, which is very good to see. It's a woman, I forget her name. But anyway, I remember we walked all around because Crowley's big thing was viewscape, because we just about trashed the Manassas battlefield because the idea was if it's not owned by the government, we don't control it. And so consequently, you can go in this hallowed battlefield ground and you look and it's Eat Joe's and this supermarket and that, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and he was talking about viewscape is important, and he actually had some good advice on the battlefield so that people didn't put condos on the other side in Washington County, which is where we did all our spy work to determine, don't worry on that flank. There's nobody there. You want to worry about that one and send runners back and down. But he's the only one we have, and he's the only one in New York, and there's none in New England, if you can imagine that. So that they've had a hard time. There are still 2 state commissions that aren't formed yet. And again, they blew their deadline. The master plan was due on the in 22.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of direction we're going to get
Yeah.
from the national, and I'm not sure how our state is going to work with the rather overly diverse crowd of people, and so we'll see what happens. But it was
The field guide, I think, is helpful, and if you look at it, we tie into everything they want. I mean, that's no issues there. They want us to look a little bit at like unfinished revolutions, like we can do that. Like it was all things that.
Yeah, I had no problem with that, and minority people that were not written in when they should have been, and history that wasn't honored when it should have been, and all. And I don't see that as a problem, as long as we don't lose the core of what we have to remember. It really is a war.
I spoke to the Saratoga 250, Lauren Roberts, who's the historian for Saratoga.
She's on the board.
And
too.
she's on the board
The new one.
on the statewide. And then I also talked to Discover Saratoga, the destination marketing organization for Saratoga, and very interested in partnering with us.
Awesome.
Right. So they said, of course, it makes sense if we're thinking about people traveling. They were like, yes, of course, we want them to stop in Albany and then to us to get the full picture. So they have funding, and they're going to do a lot of really immersive programming, you know, that I don't know that we'd be able to do, but to be able to tie into it for the people who are going to go there for a destination.
Yeah.
Saratoga's very warm and excited to work with us to make sure a complete story can be told for our region. And I guess last, Path Through History, which has been around for ages and ages, but it's a state-run program with I Love New York. So it's Father's Day weekend and Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day weekend, where we do, everyone's encouraged to do programs to get people out and about. So I've done like walking tours, and I know the heritage sites, even if it's just advertising that your doors are open, it's just, I Love New York can market to get people to heritage sites. So I suspect the commission, you know, if they are able to take funding at some point, if they are able, just making sure we have a presence on Path Through History, making sure Albany County is uploading events. And maybe in the future, you know, we know that if we're going to do an event, maybe we tie it into one of those weekends in the future. Would probably be competitive, so.
You know, what went on in the newspaper last weekend was something that never got a lot of publicity, and it's sacred sites and significant historic churches were opened up, and they would have some volunteers there inviting people. A lot of people know churches and have never been inside them because they don't belong to that group. And that will happen again. The Preservation League of New York is the big backer of it. But so many of our revolutionary heroes, and Tories as well as patriots, all were operating very closely with a different congregation. We're talking early, some were still speaking German, some were speaking Dutch, preserving their language and culture and having to make tough decisions with the revolution. We should try that in 75 and make sure that we get a revolutionary theme, particularly with these older congregations. I mean, right now we're about to lose the oldest Lutheran church congregation in America. There's only like 30 people there, and that's First Lutheran Church up on Western Avenue. It's a modern building, but it's the oldest congregation.
Did they sell the building already?
They did sell the building.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they had a big thing on it. Sunday. So it's there's a lot of things that are lost in this age that were very much a part of the American Revolution on both sides. I was with Lauren and the people from Washington and Warren County yesterday morning, and they have something which we will get directly involved in. Also, the historian Kathy Sheehan, who's the Troy and Rensselaer County historian, and you all know her from the Clark, the Cluett House over in Troy, and they are going to make a big deal on the Knox trek with the cannons of Ticonderoga taken. And by the way, a lot of the support to, because you wonder, they use boats, they use wagons, and they use sleighs. Who figured that out? Schuyler. Because that was his quartermaster function, we'd call it today, in the whole northern district. And that's how the cannons made them over to Boston, and that's why the British left, was evacuation day. And they're going to start at Lake George, and they're going to go all the way through before Christmas. And then the whole group of them stayed here during Christmas. We won't do anything. It'd be impossible to schedule places or events, etc. Then it'll start up again and go over through Kinderhook and then across the line. And this group is heavy into this. They want to involve BOCES kids, see if they can make a sleigh and things like that. And they've been working on it. And this is, again, Lauren Roberts, who is wonderful. She's a full-time county historian. She has any number of grants that comes from the Dake family and the Solomon family, and there's another family out in the Hudson Valley that give out $10,000 grants for this, that, and the other thing. They've been working on it for quite a while. So we will be involved in that. And it's something we can put on our schedule, but it'll be one of the earliest things that'll happen in the first week of December. That's when they started bringing cannons down.
As I noted last week, the Warren County Legislature is currently considering a new museum honoring Dr. Joseph Warren, for whom Warren County is named. Yeah. And they're now deliberating whether it's going to be in Queensbury or Lake George. Or, and as I read it, I'm thinking, oh, that'd be nice someday for the Albany County Legislature to debate where we're putting our new American Revolution Museum. But they're very Warren County is really got its act together with.
They've got a Lake George group that's the guy's name is Denuzzo, same family that we know from Order of Elite. John Denuzzo, he was there at the meeting, and they're very active regarding Fort George. And Fort George is the one that where the Battle of Lake George took place in the French and Indian War, and it's where the massacre took place, and for Fort William Henry and so on. But it also was one of the places where the cannons went through on their way down to Fort Edward and then across back on our side of the river and so on. So that's a group that didn't exist a few years ago. And
not to get sidetracked, but Don Rittner, who a lot of people know from his books, he's the Warren County historian now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I spoke to Don actually a couple weeks ago, and he's a mutual friend of ours has purchased the Governor John Taylor house in Guilderland. Of course, Governor John Taylor, who was an Albany merchant, was the commissary general for the Northern Armies during the American Revolution. And his house, the Knott homestead on Knott Road. But by virtue of this, Don has re-engaged in his earliest research. It actually predated his work on the Pine Bush, on the history of the Normanskill Valley. And Don's decided he's going to circle back, and he didn't necessarily commit to saying he was going to do a book, but he definitely is back on his Normanskill focus. So that's
great.
Yeah, so that would be great if we could get, some work written product from him.
Okay.
I'm at the commission meeting.
Just-
Bye-bye.
Just so that I understand correctly, our relationship with the state commission is one of, if they can help, great, but we're not like a subset of
Right.
anything the state does, right?
No.
We're- Right, they can't, if we want to be active, they can't say no.
Right.
Oh, we're very
Right.
independent.
Good.
Mhm. They had some limitations when it came to if they get to the point of funding. They had some limitations on organizations they could and could not fund, but I don't know that they're in a place to be there just yet. Because I was surprised was we found out that the state commission can't directly fund a DAR group. So they had some limitations there, but I think they still need to work out their strategic plan and whatnot. But
I questioned that. I went up to him afterwards and said, they may consider themselves a heritage agency, and don't knock them on. We said, we'll take a look at that. Because, I mean, let's face it, that's why the Van Skyke Mansion is saved and used as a mausoleum, and also they have a DAR, but they also have a Friends of, like we have the Friends of the Schuyler Mansion, et cetera. So,
yeah, so that would be the only thing, but they don't, I keep trying to find the list of the commissioners, I kind of sketch them down, or the folks on the committee, but the only thing I could think strategy-wise, if it's somebody we know, and we see a grant opportunity, and it looks really good, getting a letter of support from somebody on the commission, I think could be powerful, and
yes,
that's where I feel like I am with it right now, but others may have other thoughts.
My question was going to be related that, through that first discussion, and I know work needs to be done, but did they view themselves as kind of a state coordinator and supporting entity of a lot of the things going on? Or are they kind of, I understand technically separate, but do they view themselves as, we're doing state activities, if and when any, county-based or other smaller entities want to join on, want to participate, great, but we're kind of operating independently as a default?
I mean, so they had New York State Parks. I love New York. So yeah, I think they're kind of looking at that statewide, but Devin Lander, who's the state historian, I think is the one who's the contact for the smaller commissions.
Okay.
So if we have questions or if there's a program we want to bring the attention to this group,
Okay.
he's the one that we would reach out to.
Yeah, because I guess I'm thinking, if they're looking potentially, or maybe potentially looking at any, specific dates, events, locations, by default, I would presume, there's going to be a local entity that is already, in that area or anticipating being in that area. So kind of just curious, I don't know if it's going to be just a broad, general state initiative.
they mentioned
You know what I mean?
several times that now they are under obligation to write a plan, and they haven't written a plan. And
Okay.
most of them, I'm sure, have different opinions of what their role will be in relation to other entities,
Okay.
including ourselves. And that's supposedly going to be done over the summer or something.
Just out of curiosity, where are we in terms of our time and the agenda?
Pretty good. I mean, I think, the next item on there is just the pillars items that you all discussed last time. I don't know if you want to launch into that, but I mean, I was not at the last meeting. I watched it. I read the minutes. I sort of got the sense these are the big three things you really want to focus on. Educational material and outreach. There was considerable discussion about, getting something into the schools for children, to see and to sort of understand our local, role in this. Obviously, organization of events, have sort of memorable things that people can look at, whether it be the tall ships or whatever else. And then, obviously, the legacy items, whether it be the books that we put together or the, something more. I know Jeff had spoken a little bit more about something a little more concrete and physical. But, I mean, that was sort of the sense that I got from all of you as to really the big three things you want to focus on. I don't know.
I would modify it a little bit, and I went over
Okay.
my notes from the last meeting, so maybe a little bit of modification. Definitely, we did talk and I think reach some degree of consensus on education and children's programs being, certainly one of paramount importance. I think also, in terms of organization of events, my recollection is we didn't want to do sort of one and done events, galas, parades, that kind of thing, right? That wasn't, not that we're anti-event necessarily, but our sense was that it's a lot of work and then it's gone, and there's not much left to show for it. So maybe just sort of modifying that a little bit to reflect that understanding. I think also we talked about serving as an umbrella facilitator for local organizations, maybe kind of identifying some common themes and then invite multiple executions off of those themes, but doing whatever we can at the county level to support the local heritage sites and historical societies, whatever. So that role of sort of umbrella facilitator, however, I think that should be. Yeah, I think also we spent a lot of time, and I don't know that it necessarily was refined down into a pillar, but it could or should be, in that we talked about not wanting to be just battles and remembering battles.
About stories.
Right, yeah. And particularly Albany County's unique role, right? Things that only happened here or that couldn't have happened nationally without what we did here, right? And just, we talked about, I have a note here, how pluralistic we were relative to other places, right? Yeah. We had Dutch, we had English, we had Tories, we had Patriots, we had free African Americans, we had slaves, we had Germans, right? There's really no other place that maybe New York City, but their experience was so different because they were occupied the whole time. But certainly in contrast with Boston and Philadelphia, we had Quakers, were the Shakers here then? Were the Shakers in Colony?
76 is their magic number.
Right. So, and it reminded me, if you ever read, is it Russell Shorto's The Island at the Center of the World?
Yes,
right.
Which is wonderful.
Right. His theme basically is that New York invented the notion of a plural society, way more so than Boston or Philadelphia did, and we definitely reflect that here. So Albany County's uniqueness, I think, has got to be, to me at least, front and center. And finally, the last one was, and I think this does go to sort of legacy, but it's also, I think it should inform our priorities during the time of the commission's work, which is, economic development, and particularly legacy economic development, but economic development in the here and now, right? Heritage tourism. In fact, I was going to make a specific request, Maeve, if maybe someone from your shop, or if you knew someone else, if we could have someone maybe give a short presentation at one of our meetings on just what is heritage tourism, how do we stand, how do we rate, what are our opportunities, what are our limitations, right, so that we have sort of an understanding of the context for that. But in putting together the legislation originally to put this commission, that was one of the paramount things, was this is not just a history exercise. This is, by making this relevant to the economic vitality of the county now, that should be front and center.
Yeah, I like that last point. I think, we here and plenty others could talk about the things that we already, kind of like and are interested in, right? And that may and likely would be different than, kind of the casually interested person. And, and I think that kind of ties into the, tourism part of the equation. What are the types of, events, programmings, activities, initiatives that are more likely to grab those casually interested folks, because we're doing this because we want to share the stories, inform people, celebrate. We don't need to do that amongst ourselves, right? Because we're already there.
Right. We're already history nerds.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to make it sound a little bit better. But yeah, I certainly would be really interested in kind of the engagement side of the equation for that casual observer, or the casually interested person, to make all this that much more worthwhile. I mean, yes, the economic development piece, but just, you know, kind of the broad mission that we have, we're doing this not for ourselves, although we enjoy it, you know, ideally for others to, you know, be involved and engaged, who might otherwise, you know, not know a lot of the stuff that we're talking about.
I think you can characterize it sort of as a pyramid, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure our history is right and our history is good for those who are going to be quick to, you know, correct us if we're, right? So we want to be good as scholars, I guess. But to your point, we want to make it broadly relevant to a much wider audience of people, right?
Carrie Warner, who's one of the two sponsors of the bill, Assemblyman from Saratoga County, she said exactly that. She said as much as, you know, all of these altruistic goals are good, that there's an economic dividend that's going to be realized by doing this properly.
Her quote was, history tourists stay twice as long and spend 3 times as much money. And when the city of Albany did their heritage tourism report, that pretty close same phrasing. The data shows that history people come, they book a hotel, and they want to try craft beverage, and they want really authentic experiences, and they'll spend the money to do it.
Is that a report? I'm sure I can look it up, but is that something you could share around?
Yeah,
Or-
it's the City of Albany one is older, right?
Okay.
That was when it's almost like 9 years old now. But it's some of, especially that Carrie Warner said that.
Bring
that
it right up to date.
Yeah, it brings it right up to
You know,
date.
one of the challenges we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me one of the challenges we're going to have is we've lost a lot of our bricks and mortar. We're not Boston, we're not Philadelphia. We don't have Paul Revere's house for people to go see. We don't have Old Ironside sitting in our, you know, so like where was Aaron Burr's law office? Where was Hamilton's law office? Where was Philip Livingston's home? Can we through signage, or how can we,
Well,
Jonathan Kidney, a great character of American Revolution, you know, where did,
I have
how can we,
I have a brochure. Again, it could be updated, but when Hamilton was coming in, and that was a challenge I ran into, is they said, Maeve, do a Hamilton tour. And I went, right? Okay. And so I have managed, because, you know, they got into the feud right down the street here for the, you know, getting caught
and
gossiping.
we've lost that.
We've lost that.
right.
With a tour guide, I could bring it alive, and people like it. You know, what did help with this walking tour, and, you know, it was all Hamilton focused, there was an exhibit, this is why I don't have it out now, you know, there was an exhibit at the Albany Institute, and there was something special at the Schuyler Mansion that kind of bookended it.
Yeah.
The second year we published it, we pulled in Albany Rural, but yeah, that was the hard thing, is when we made that
Yeah.
brochure, but then that exhibit went away.
I mean,
So-
we have Van Schaik
But-
Island, we have the Schuyler Mansion, we have the churches, which Jack
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, but.
Well, I mean,
Well,
relatively
Blackboard
speaking,
does.
we don't
Yeah,
have
yep, yep.
we don't have what we used to have. We didn't preserve and save like they did in Boston.
Yeah,
We still have a lot more than most other places have,
But-
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and
We-
there's some value even to going to spots where things
You-
are
you've
not.
done
That's
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
That's
Right.
right. That's right.
And maybe it's
Yeah.
tying it
Yeah.
into the businesses,
Right.
like it's not
Right.
here.
That's on, can we go to where was,
And let's
Right.
and
Yeah.
you correct
I
me
agree with that.
if I'm wrong on this, but you know, physical buildings are both an obvious opportunity, but they're also a bit of a challenge, not just in maintaining, but it's not like historical sites are being overrun with visitors
Yeah.
these days, right? So it actually creates a challenge, which is an opportunity, which is if you can develop themes, right, that are relevant to today's consumer, then you can surmount your lack of physical place, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, it may actually be more engaging and entertaining than if you're trying to get people to come visit, you know, yet another old colonial
Yeah.
house, right? It's harder to do, it's harder to conceive of, but if you can pull it off,
Yeah. A scavenger, so what's something we're working on, and this was a pandemic panic, as most of it was, but we did an Eliza Schuyler Hamilton scavenger hunt where, you know, and this was obviously not permanent, but we like hid stars at heritage sites that were tied to Eliza or the Hamiltons. And we had kids dressing up and like traveling with their grandparents to the sites, you know, into the gardens, into the public spaces. But when you broke it down and the information was there, it was about the women of that era. So what would so even though Eliza wasn't at Tenbrook Mansion, but what would a woman be doing there? And it also gave a chance to talk about some of the enslaved women who were there. So I think there is something, again, that was something permanent. That was something we threw together. My office is talking about how can we make that like a more livable thing that a family can take. But I agree. So even if the physical site's not there, you know, go to that corner and read that story. I think there is a way to make that engaging without a visitor being disappointed, like, oh, well, it's not there.
Well, even, yeah, I was just gonna say, even having some set occasions when you can have somebody who could go there and tell the story.
Yeah.
Which I think.
It makes a
Does a
big
lot.
If
difference.
you can get a reenactor anywhere, it's unbelievably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was thinking, these types of opportunities are also, I think I mentioned it last time, you know, but these locations that are, I don't want to say not significant enough, because that's not fair, but, you know, don't have a obvious physical attraction or tie now. You know, some of the basic signage, but then, you know, the little kind of informational, educational, fun video kind of concept where it's a, you know, a 2-3 minute video. There's a sign there, it has basic information, QR code
Yep.
that someone can, you know,
Yep.
watch an engaging video. So there's, you know, some sort of stimulant that's tying them and engaging them to that particular location without being, you know, a building with a display, you know, or you know, exhibit or whatever it might be.
I kind of hate to bring it up because this is actually a painful experience. But there is a thing, it's called STQRY, and it's you can create a tour on your phone, and you know, we worked through trying to make one for the Stephen and Harriet Myers Historic Site, and we finally came up with something. Not too pleased with the way it turned out, but it is something that I think other people have used it and done brilliant stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know.
This was discussed yesterday up in Saratoga on the QR. It does a wonder of things.
And I think that's you know, when we talk more about stories and individuals and groups of people rather than, you know, this particular skirmish or this date, you know, the date thing is much easier to, I think, read on, you know, a sign or a placard. It's on this location, da, 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 you know, but something more human-based and story-based in a little video is a way to engage that, you know, especially for folks, like I said, who may not be the, you know, history buff, but kind of, you know, likes a little bit of that type of engagement. You know, I think, I don't know, that to me it just seems like a little bit of a bridge without having to create things and then maintain those things.
Yep.
But then still have some sort of thing that, you know, that's connecting to that location.
Totally agree, and I think the other thing, and this is going to sound parochial coming from someone who represents the more rural part of the county, but insofar as we previously discussed that, you know, the American Revolution in Albany County was highly relevant because of what happened in the city of Albany, but it was also very relevant because of what happened out in the countryside, right? And for the most part, those places of relevance look a lot like they did back then.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can tell a story and if you can curate a story physically, it's still, you know, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to picture, you know, the Tories going in Tory Cave at Thatcher Park, right? So it's still there.
Saratoga will be doing AR tours, so they'll do augmented reality. So, I mean, think beyond ours, but it is like you would go to that site and you hold up your phone, and then the actor pops up and tells you.
That's neat.
Stretch goal, but that is something that they're working on as well. And as we're talking about possible partnership with them, making that also a regional cohesive story, I think could be good.
There's one other thing they did which really impressed me. They hired a cartoonist. The cartoonist is from the Glens Falls newspaper. And they took care of the text. And they created an imaginary, like 14-year-old boy, strictly Saratoga County, and how he goes to the grist mill and he goes to here and there, and it's all geared on 1774, the year of decision. And he goes to all the Tories and to different people, and they're upset about the Stamp Act, and they heard about what's going on over in Boston with the Boston Tea Party and so on, and all of these things. And he's just a little boy who is going to wind up in this war. We know that because we know how long it goes. And he just talks to people. He talks to the military people who are, you know, veterans of the French and Indian War and people like that, and they all have opinions, and they had him draw them, and then they made changes, like you couldn't have all the Tories have evil eyes. They gotta look neutral, and on both sides, because nobody knows who the good guys or the bad guys are gonna be. And we changed, you know, hairstyles and things like that, but they're going to produce 100 of them, 1,000 of them, and they're going to be paper, and it'll probably be like about 10 pages, and every fourth grader is going to love them, and they're going to try those. And they've got a grant to do it. Yeah, and they said if this is good, they're going to the printer in June, and they hope to have it done certainly before, you know, at some point when they go back to school. And it's to anticipate the American Revolution. It's the year of decision. What are these problems that people somehow have? And
We could steal that.
we could pick our places.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
something I think unintentional that we're talking about as we talk about economic impact, we're talking creative economy, right? So as we're looking for funding and we're looking for things, we're talking about hiring artists to help us, hiring videographers, actors, writers. So that's just something, as I've been listening, I'm like, oh, that's also competitive to talk about, is that we'd be supporting local creatives.
As you're all talking, I'm thinking, I'm imagining the New York Times article written about how Albany County had a challenge in that we didn't preserve a lot of our stuff, but nevertheless, and this article will be written, 4 years hence, nevertheless, we put on one of the most creative, innovative type commemorations to be had.
Our artist community, is pretty in depth, in terms of, if you need something creative, interesting, we have a lot of different resources to reach out to.
And to your point, to meet people where they are today, that kind of approach may be ultimately far more impactful than restoring a building.
That could also, if we wanted it to be something, at this thing in July that it sounds like kind of penciled in or structured, there could be, a call to the creative committee. If we have a good idea generally of, the types of things we could be interested in, we could issue that call to the community for the, please submit, whether you want to do something formal like a, not an RFP, but, kind of a more formalized proposal, or, sharing of ideas or thoughts, what's something, within your creative capacities that you think you could make sense, and we can kind of collect that. And I don't know how an evaluation or determination process would work, but again, as a way to, an active way to engage some of these folks kind of along that stream, I think that's something that could be fun too.
I think, what would you like to see?
And I think from a broader sense, I think as a commission, I think we need to educate in part, and it should be part of our branding, again, too, to always talk about how important historically, geographically, Albany County, specifically the city of Albany, was to the revolution, which again, I think has been lost. We've lost it to Boston, we've lost it to Philadelphia. Albany was in many ways as significantly important as those two cities. I mean, if not for the Battle of Saratoga, we all know where the British were, but this was important. And Albany was an incredibly important city.
Dime from Europe without Saratoga, much less troops in the Navy.
Yep. So I think I think we need to use that as that's kind of our vision, you know, how important Albany is and was
Yeah, I mean,
to the founding of the country. you know?
As part of that, thinking about how we could pitch it, we know the what, 250, we know these stories, we know these people, we're looking to you, to our creative community to help, with the how. What are the variety of creative ways we can get these messages and these stories, out to be consumed, kind of following your pyramid approach. I think the creative community can get at those larger bottom portions of the pyramid, in a way certainly better than I can at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I like that idea. I think
Yeah.
that by itself is engaging, the broader community with this initiative, I think. And then ultimately, I think Canon would likely end up, leading to some good products.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that spurs the economic, and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I
I think it
agree.
ties in a lot of, yeah.
As you were talking in branding, it just occurred to me, and I'm sure it's been used before, but really Albany was the crossroads of the
Yep,
revolution.
absolutely, yep.
That's really
Yep.
what we were, physically, metaphorically.
And today, we're the crossroads of the Northeast
Mhm.
in many respects. So we can bridge that gap.
It's a good tagline.
Okay. All right, so have on here open discussion, but the next item I really want to talk about is scheduling. When would you all like to meet next? I think, there may be some value in meeting sooner than later, just to formally get everything structured here, since we have all of our commissioners in place. But, it's really up to all of you.
I think we just need time, unless we want to do it over email, to figure out when in July. So I don't know if it means meeting in June and then think about what July looks like.
Well,
Mike?
if we're gonna try to hit Jack's idea of a launch, which I think is a worthy one, then I think we should try to meet ahead of that
Mhm.
in June,
Like the last week of June.
last week in
Mhm.
June.
Would that be Tuesday, the 25th?
That's open.
That's the election.
Oh. Well.
We could, if we could vote and
Yeah.
meet, unless it's logistically not.
Well, means we're gonna be in town.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right. That works for me.
That
It
is
works for
okay with
others.
me.
25th, is that what you said?
Mhm.
Okay, 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Um, Just in case anybody missed it from last time, I still have a bunch of copies. I'll be making history at 250 from the SLH.
What's that? What's the date? The 25th of July.
Yeah. And if you want more copies, see, I got 30 copies, and I figured, I had no idea how many people.
I have the other 30, so they gave us
Nice.
stacks of them.
Just
Oh, go ahead.
to support Patrick's bring back of a July thing, do we want to look at a couple particular weeks, or is just the month of July kind of close enough to the July 4th concept that, is the 18th fine compared to,
Yes.
the first week or two?
So I'm in Tampa the 15th to the 19th, and so is half the Discover Albany staff. Not half, but there's like three of us going. So that week would not be good.
I think we should shoot for as close to the 4th as, the
So
county
the first-
executive's
the first 2
office can.
weeks?
Yeah, so that would be the week of the 8th we'd be looking at. Or
Or the
before-
first?
Or the first.
Those first 2 weeks in July. I'm biased because I'm on vacation the week of the 22nd, but
No?
Of
July,
July? Yeah,
yeah.
let's do it before that. Try to do it.
I mean, not that it has to be a particular
Well-
date, but I don't know if it's more helpful for you.
I don't know how it works with that meeting on the 25th of June and then a week later.
What's that?
Well, we're not talking about the swearing in, it wouldn't be a working meeting, right? It would be more of a,
No, I think
Press
it would mostly
event.
be a-
Yeah.
Ceremonial.
Yeah, I mean, think that's ultimately something I have to talk to Mary Rozak about, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we could give, you know, do we want a range of dates, like the 8th, 9th, and 10th, or do we want something specific?
Why don't we see how the county executive
Yeah.
and the
Okay, so
legislature
what I'll
feels in
do, I
general.
guess, is I will reach out to the county executives team and get back to you all ASAP.
And if we could, since it's nice weather, and let's not do it inside in the county building.
Oh, I agree.
Let's go
Yeah.
someplace that,
Would we be picking, like if we went to a heritage site somewhere, or would we?
Yeah.
That seems.
instead of picking favorites.
Right.
We gotta
Well,
pick
like,
somebody.
Well, I mean, you know, we have somebody from Van Shay. I don't know, but that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
appropriate. Tenbrook, it is the home headquarters of the Albany County Historical Society.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
That would be my leading.
Yeah, that would make
Right.
sense.
And there's space, there's parking.
I just had a couple of things to share. We mentioned Governor John Taylor on the 19th, on Juneteenth, as part of our Juneteenth programming at the Altamont Free Library. I'm actually giving a talk on Governor John Taylor, who was the governor to sign the bill abolishing slavery in New York State, as well as a lot of other things. So I think that's going to be at 2 o'clock, although that may change. But also, the county, at our last meeting, again, formalized the purchase of the Switzkill Farm in Bern, which we took over full ownership, I guess, from the town of Bern. That is very close to the site of the Dietz Massacre,
Yeah.
which was the bloodiest event in the Revolution in Albany County. The county is currently in the process of kind of working on a plan for that property. So I do think we should try to get in with Cam Sagan as that is being formulated to make, just to get in the discussion. Just
What
to
year
see.
was the initial?
1781.
I'd love to get a master plan so people don't think this is a one-shot on, and we can mention some of these things, because this
Yep.
is a multi-year commission, something every year,
Yep.
all local.
And then I'm meeting next week with Attorney B.J. Costello, who is coordinating the waterway program.
Yep.
Not necessarily in this capacity, but just generally to hear more about what their plan is, and that could be an opportunity for some sort of creative partnership as well. And finally, legislator Vicki Plotsky and I last week went out to visit Tim Albright, who is a wonderful natural and physical historian out in the town of New Scotland, to give him a proclamation honoring his work in getting Thatcher Park designated as a national landmark. And Tim mentioned that there has been discussion of reopening Torrey Cave to the public.
Really?
Which has been closed for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see what more we can learn about that. And again,
Have some Salisbury show up for the event too.
yeah, and hang them. We could have a mock hanging reenactor. So as I learn more there, I'll keep everyone apprised as to that.
That's great.
Yeah, we don't have time to talk about it now, but natural world is something, you know, with hiking and caves and whatnot, that's another way to engage people. It's like, oh, I wouldn't do history. Oh, I'd go on a hike.
Right.
I'd go in a cave.
And if you've got kids, one
Yeah.
kid's gonna love it, the other's gonna hum. Something for every one of them.
Great.
Anything else? All right, then we're all
We
set.
adjourn?
Yeah, we can take a motion to adjourn if anyone would like to make one.
So be it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, adjourn.
Thank you all.
Great.
Yeah.